Hi, Scorpio. Thank you for being here with me again. I know you don't come to these messages for surface level guidance. You come because something in you senses when the energy is shifting, even before the world around you catches up. And today, that shift is quiet but meaningful. April 8th, 2025 marks the end of Mercury's retrograde. A subtle turn, yes, but for you, it lands deeper. It touches the places you've been questioning in silence, the thoughts you've replayed but haven't spoken aloud. In this space between old patterns and new language, something is beginning to move. This isn't about rushing forward. It's not about resolutions or bold declarations. It's about listening deeply and recognizing that the clarity you've been waiting for isn't arriving from the outside. It's already rising within you. In the message that follows, I want to walk with you into that stillness, into the pause that holds more power than motion. You don't have to be ready. You only have to be present. Let's begin. What you're stepping into now isn't loud, but it's real. The energy has shifted direction. And while the world may not look any different today than it did yesterday, something inside you is no longer circling the same questions. The loop has broken. Mercury's retrograde is over, and with it, the haze that's kept certain thoughts clouded starts to clear. For Scorpio, this moment doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives in the subtle return of your own voice. Not the one shaped by defense or strategy, but the one that speaks from a grounded place. It's the voice that doesn't ask for permission, the one that knows what it knows. Maybe you've been holding back from saying something. Maybe you've been waiting for a sign that it's okay to move or to stop moving. Maybe there's been a choice lingering in the background and you haven't wanted to force it. That's wise, because today you're not being pushed, you're being aligned. This is what forward motion looks like for you now, not reaction, but recognition. You recognize the moment you've outgrown. You recognize the pattern that's lost its grip. You recognize that you don't need to explain what no longer fits. The release is internal. The shift is yours. You don't need to narrate this to anyone else. You don't need to make it visible to feel that it's valid. In fact, the power of this moment comes from how quiet it is, how certain. In the next part of this message, we'll explore what this shift means for your relationships, your inner dialogue, and the way you move through decisions going forward. You're not chasing clarity anymore. You're living in it. Let's keep going. In your relationships, this shift might feel like a soft boundary rising, not a wall, not a push, but a quiet decision to stop participating in what drains you. You're not cutting people out impulsively. You're simply no longer willing to shrink to stay connected. And even if you're not ready to speak that out loud yet, something in your presence already says it. You might notice you're less reactive, not because you don't care, but because your energy has turned inward to observe before engaging, to feel what's true before responding. You're listening differently now, not just to others, but to yourself. And what you're hearing is clearer than it's been in a long time. That internal dialogue, the one that used to spiral, it's shifting too. You're starting to trust your timing. You're not rushing to fix, solve, or decode everything. There's a quiet confidence building, not because you suddenly have all the answers, but because you're learning to be okay without them. You're learning that space, real, intentional space, is not absence, it's wisdom. The way you make decisions going forward will reflect this new rhythm. Less pressure, more alignment. You'll find yourself choosing differently, not because you've changed overnight, but because you're no longer trying to override what you already know. There's less convincing, less second guessing. The question has become simpler. Does this feel like peace? If not, it's not your path. Mercury going direct doesn't erase the past few weeks of uncertainty, but it does mark the moment when you stop circling the same internal maze. You can see the doorway again. And you don't have to sprint through it. You can walk slowly, deliberately, without apology. In the next section, we'll move deeper into this new clarity, not just mentally, but energetically. We'll look at how to ground into it, how to honor it when fear tries to pull you back, and how to trust that what's leaving now is making space for something far more aligned. You're not falling apart. You're settling into something real, and it's about time. The days ahead may test this new clarity, not in dramatic ways, but in small, quiet moments. A text that pulls you back into an old version of yourself, a silence that feels heavier than usual, a familiar urge to explain or fix what was never yours to carry. These are not setbacks, they are invitations to respond differently, to stay rooted, to remember what you've outgrown. There's a part of you that has always wanted to be seen, deeply understood without needing to explain. But the truth is, Scorpio, the more deeply you see yourself, the less you require that validation from others. And this season, especially now as Mercury begins moving forward, is helping you return to that inner knowing. You don't need to be decoded. You need to be honored, first and foremost, by yourself. Grounding into this energy means allowing the slowness, letting stillness speak before you act. You may feel moments of discomfort as you stop filling space that was never yours to manage. You may feel exposed when you don't default to your usual emotional armor. But every time you resist the old reflex, you are making space for something else, something real, something that doesn't require performance or explanation. This is how your power is returning to you, not in a rush of momentum, but in steady presence. You are starting to realize that you don't need to announce your transformation. It becomes visible in your choices, in the pauses, in the words you no longer say, in the invitations you no longer accept. This clarity will ask you to trust your inner pace. Even when others want answers faster than you're ready to give them, even when the world around you rewards quick decisions and constant output, but that's not your rhythm anymore. Yours is deeper, slower, truer. It doesn't seek confirmation. Let yourself feel what you feel. Let it move through your body. Let your nervous system catch up to your spirit. This isn't about doing more. It's about being more honest about what's already here. In the final part of this message, we'll anchor this energy through a symbol that has been with you all along, quietly guiding you through the chaos, through the silence, through the unknown. Because you haven't been lost. You've been remembering. Let's return to that together. There's an image I keep seeing as I sit with your energy today. The surface of still water just before something rises from underneath. You know it's coming. You can feel the shift, the subtle pressure of something forming, but you're not reaching for it. You're letting it come to you. That's where your strength lives now. Not in the reaching, but in the allowing. What's rising isn't a new version of you. It's the part you buried under survival, under performance, under roles that were never yours to begin with. And as Mercury moves forward again, you may start to hear that part of you more clearly. Not in words, not yet, but in the way your body reacts when something is right or wrong, in the relief you feel when you stop pretending, in the strange calm that comes when you don't chase the thing you used to need. You're not trying to return to who you were. You're not trying to become someone new. You're simply letting go of the interference. And what's left is truth. This truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to be proven or made pretty. It just needs to be honored. And that's your task now, to stay close to what's honest, even when it's inconvenient, even when it asks you to disappoint someone else in order to stay loyal to yourself. You may find that your world starts to rearrange itself quietly around this shift. Conversations fall away, expectations dissolve, some connections soften and fade without conflict, not because they were wrong, but because you're no longer in the same frequency. Let it happen. You're not losing anything essential. You're making space for what can actually meet you where you are. And where you are right now is a threshold. 1 foot in the story you've known, 1 foot in a space you haven't fully named yet. That's okay. You don't need to name it today. You only need to respect it, trust it, listen. The symbol that's coming through for you now is not a distant archetype or some lofty spiritual image. It's simple, it's close. It's the sound of a lock clicking open, not a door being kicked down, not a dramatic breakthrough, just that small, undeniable sound, click, that tells you something has shifted. The bolt has moved. The thing that was once stuck is no longer. And even if the door hasn't opened yet, even if you haven't stepped through, you know, it will. That's the energy of today, April 8th, 2025. You don't need to force anything open. Mercury moving direct is the moment the lock gives way, quietly, naturally, without resistance, because the resistance was never yours to hold in the first place. It was made of thoughts you no longer believe. habits that no longer match who you are, stories that belonged to an earlier version of you. Now that the lock has moved, your job is not to rush through the door. Your job is to pause, to notice what's changed, to feel what's possible, to understand the cost of turning back and the invitation that stands in front of you. It's not about urgency, it's about presence. The clarity available to you now isn't a floodlight. It's a match being struck in a dark room. Enough to see where you are, enough to move with intention, enough to remind you that you never needed someone else to illuminate the way, only to trust your own spark. If you're still holding questions, still unsure about the next step, let yourself stay here a moment longer. This isn't limbo, it's preparation. This is where alignment takes shape, not in what you do next, but in who you are as you wait. And this time, you're not waiting from fear. You're waiting from awareness. That changes everything. You may notice that you no longer want to reach out to the same people when you feel uncertain. You may no longer tolerate the same forms of distraction or self-doubt. The things that used to soothe you may no longer work. And that's not failure. That's growth. You're evolving out of the need to be rescued and into the capacity to respond. In the final closing message, we'll come back to that, not as a concept, but as an embodiment. Because now that the lock has turned, your presence matters more than your plans. You are being asked not to react, but to receive. Not to push, but to align. The next door opens from within. Let's meet it from that place. As we come to the end of today's message, I want to offer you something that isn't instruction, but permission. Permission to slow down, to feel everything, to let things take the time they need to reveal their meaning. Because not every transformation announces itself in bright colors or loud beginnings. Some arrive in silence, in the breath you didn't realize you were holding, in the moment you stop trying to explain your intuition and just follow it. Scorpio, I know your path isn't always the easiest. You walk through layers, you go beneath the surface, you carry a depth that others don't always see, and you often hold space for others even when you're unsure who's holding space for you. But this moment, this soft, subtle shift brought on by Mercury moving direct is about turning some of that presence back toward yourself. You don't owe anyone a timeline. You don't have to announce what you're healing. You don't have to justify why your priorities are shifting or why your energy feels different lately. Something in you is realigning, and that is reason enough. So if you're still in the middle of something that feels incomplete, that's okay. Let yourself be in the middle. Let yourself rest inside the process without needing to name what's next. You're not falling behind. You're deepening. And when the next moment of clarity arrives, you'll know exactly how to meet it. Not because you pushed, but because you listened. As you leave this space today, I hope you carry one thing with you: the quiet confidence that comes from trusting your own timing. Everything doesn't need to be resolved for you to feel grounded. You are allowed to move slowly, to speak less, to feel more. You are allowed to need quiet. You are allowed to not be available for the noise. This is how your power returns. Not in the moment you prove something to the world, but in the moment you choose not to abandon yourself. Thank you for meeting me here today. Thank you for honoring the stillness. I'll be here, as always, watching the skies and walking with you through whatever comes next. Not as someone with all the answers, but as someone who believes in your capacity to stay present, to stay real, and to lead your life from the inside out. Until next time, stay close to yourself. That's where the clarity lives. That's where the future begins.